Money wasn't the main reason he departed, although he did call the show juvenile and detested the fact that his character never developed. His actual motivation was kept a secret until lately. The startling reality? It had to do with blacklisting, civil rights, and a secret Hollywood wished to keep hidden forever. On May 18, 1928, Pernell Roberts was born in Waycross, Georgia. He was born during the height of the Great Depression, and he experienced extreme hardship as a child. More than 60% of the farms in his neighborhood had gone bankrupt by the time he reached 5. His father sold Dr. Pepper door to door after having once dreamed of becoming a doctor. His weekly salary was only $7.85, or roughly $143 in today's currency. Young Pernell had to trek more than a mile each day to obtain water because their wooden house lacked plumbing. His family was forced to rely on food aid between 1932 and 1934 because the town's unemployment rate was close to 42%. He was eternally altered by a single moment. At the age of 11, he witnessed 78 Klan members march through his town on July 11, 1939. His desire for civil rights was sparked by that horrifying sight. Sometimes working till 2 in the morning, his mother had 3 jobs. To get her home safely, Pernell would wait outside the factory. He developed grit and became the fierce, uncompromising guy he would become as a result of that kind of adversity. But he found hope in music. He found a damaged tuba in a junkyard in 1941 when he was barely 13 years old. He trained himself to play it, the French horn, the sousaphone, and 5 different kinds of drums in less than 3 months. He was able to play 11 instruments by the time he was 15. After just one listen, he was able to replicate intricate music while performing for soldiers at the nearby USO club. His hand was crushed in an accident in 1944. His chances of regaining full usage were only 7% according to the doctors. That was not acceptable to him. Rather, he regained his power by practicing for 14 hours every day. He was performing Chopin's most difficult piano composition with complete authority by March 1945. He was a composer as well as a performer. 14 original pieces were listed in his yearbook. In 1946, the Atlanta Symphony even played one of them, Southern Lament. He was offered a full scholarship by Juilliard. The training was extremely restrictive, so he declined. Pernell gave his all to the war effort, despite the fact that he was too young to enlist. He staged a musical revue 2 days after Pearl Harbor, raising $837 for war bonds, or around $15,400 today. He did 247 USO concerts between 1942 and 1945. He occasionally rode his bike about 30 miles to get to military installations. At the age of 16, he was surreptitiously employed by the War Department to entertain German prisoners of war and injured soldiers at Camp Gordon in August 1944. Later, military psychologists reported that his shows increased the rate at which seriously wounded troops recovered. He refused to leave the stage during a missile alert drill on March 11, 1945. For the entire 37 minutes he continued to play his tuba. General Eisenhower signed a citation for him for such daring gesture. Additionally, he played for 178 soldiers on Christmas Eve of that year despite suffering from scarlet fever. 16 of them perished in the Battle of the Bulge a few days later. In the chapel he discovered theater. The congregation was stunned by his debut role at the age of 8. People were shocked when he interrupted his planned shepherd role to deliver a 4-minute monologue in which he questioned God's silence throughout Herod's slaughter. He performed in over 20 church plays before the age of 12. He brought in 7 black adolescents to participate with him in the town's first integrated concert in 1943. The reaction was fierce. From the church, dozens departed. Even though his father's job was a danger, Roberts persisted. He portrayed Judas as a confused rebel rather than a villain in 1944, causing church elders to object. The Prodigal Son, his last church play, reinterpreted the biblical tale to criticize inequity. 6 weeks after seeing the performance, a theater director offered him his first job. With excellent test results, he enrolled at Georgia Tech in 1946 but soon encountered difficulties. He skipped ROTC classes and arranged a debate about nuclear weapons. It, he claimed, encouraged mindless obedience. He accused the engineering department of disregarding ethics in a daring critique that was published in the school newspaper. He was being watched by the FBI by April for being the leader of student organizations that studied Einstein and Marx. He was described as talented yet dangerous by one dean. Roberts quit after just 141 days. Later on, he declared that he had no interest in constructing bridges. He wanted to know who was in charge of them. He enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps that summer. He didn't see war because he was a talented musician. During the Truman administration, he instead joined the Marine Corps band and played at more than 200 public functions. He was only 7 feet apart from Winston Churchill during one performance. A commander who appreciated his approach rescued him from being court-martialed for playing jazz at a military review. He returned to Georgia Tech after leaving the Marines in 1948. After a contentious debate over the social duty of engineers, he departed again despite receiving excellent grades in calculus. He then started studying philosophy at the University of Maryland in 1950. There he purposefully failed his science classes while earning excellent ratings in all of his humanities studies. 1958, 1959, Pernell Roberts' Hollywood transition. The film debut of Sophia Loren. Pernell Roberts' early Hollywood career hit a major turning point when he was cast in Desire Under the Elms in 1958, co-starring with rising star Anthony Perkins and global wonder Sophia Loren. For Roberts, this adaptation of Eugene O'Neill's 1924 drama was a distinguished opportunity. Who played the role of Peter Cabot in the drama with strong emotions. Directed by Delbert Mann and adapted from a screenplay by O'Neill and Irwin Shaw, the movie was distributed by Paramount Pictures via Don Hartman Productions. The movie had mixed reviews despite its well-known cast and literary credentials. Critics criticized Burl Ives' portrayal of Ephraim Cabot in particular. The New York Times' Bosley Crowther harshly criticized Ives' performance, claiming that rather of resembling a tired and unmotivated old toilet, he resembled foxy grandpa wearing a religious black cap. Despite its modest $1 million box office success, Domestic Rentals received acclaim at the 1959 Laurel Awards and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Black and White Cinematography. Daniel L. Fapp. This 111-minute dramatic film marked Roberts' foray into serious Hollywood cinema and laid the groundwork for his varied professional path that would eventually bring him even more fame. Typecasting for Western films starts. Roberts' professional trajectory was ironically foreshadowed in 1958 when he got a character role alongside Hollywood mainstay Glenn Ford in The Sheepman. Roberts' complex connection with the genre, which would both raise his profile and ultimately thwart his artistic goals, began with this Western film. Roberts, a classically educated actor who had acted Shakespeare on Broadway and won the coveted Best Actor Drama Desk Award for his 1955 off-Broadway portrayal of Macbeth, gave his Western roles a unique sense of gravity. He stood out from many of his peers due to his rigorous theatrical training, adding subtle characterization to his performances that is uncommon in the genre. After completing Broadway stints in The Taming of the Shrew and The Duchess of Malfi in 1957, Roberts moved between movie sets and theatrical plays throughout 1958, before moving on to Hollywood endeavors. Critics would subsequently point out that although Roberts felt typecast by Westerns, they also gave him his best role, highlighting the irony of his Western typecasting. He first saw the production reality of Hollywood Westerns when working on the set of The Sheepman. Sequences that were physically taxing, lengthy filming in far-off places, and dialogue that was reduced in contrast to his Shakespearean training, forming the business relationships and professional habits that would eventually result in his big television opportunity the following year. Collaboration with Randolph Scott in Ride Lonesome. In the 1959 Western Ride Lonesome, Roberts played the morally complicated criminal Sam Boone alongside genre legend Randolph Scott, giving what many critics believe to be his best cinematic performance. Shot in stunning CinemaScope at Lone Pine beginning August 14, 1958, under the direction of Bud Buticker. Aficionados have praised this 73-minute movie as possibly the best B-movie, 49. In addition to being a part of Butticker's highly regarded Rand cycle of westerns, the production was James Coburn's first motion picture appearance, resulting in an iconic ensemble cast. The intricacy of Roberts' portrayal of Boone was especially praised. One reviewer observed that Roberts evokes every ounce of sardonic humor, macho appeal, and faithfulness to his own unique code which the script permits. It's interesting to note that Roberts' character was supposed to die in Burt Kennedy's original screenplay, but Butticker thought his performance was so endearing that he asked studio boss Sam Briskin for permission to allow the character live. 9. The director later stated that he purposefully only shot the ending in which Roberts survives, despite having pledged to shoot 2. The film's production took place at a crucial juncture in Roberts's career, when his stage-honed acting skills were ideally adapted to the Western genre, demonstrating his ability to play nuanced roles even in traditional settings. Pernell Roberts joined Bonanza in 1959 to play Adam Cartwright. It was significant. Roberts was no novice, and NBC had great expectations. Having performed in Othello and Antigone, he had a solid theatrical experience. 3 years into the show, however, Roberts was already fed up by 1962. He publicly stated, "I would prefer to be out completely now, but I had to sign for a 6th year to get a raise." Desperate to maintain their top-rated show, NBC extended his 5-year contract to a 6-year one. They turned him away when he requested to leave. "I felt a sense of responsibility," after one executive acknowledged that we were attempting to present a tidy package to a new sponsor. Roberts portrayed Adam, a contemplative architect with a college degree. In contrast to the younger, more irascible Cartwrights, he was the quiet, learned brother. However, what began as a novel and intricate function soon grew stale. The character was not allowed to develop by the writers. Despite being an adult, Adam continued to act as though he required his father's approval for everything. "I expected it to be a sophisticated show, but what Roberts received felt hollow," he later remarked. He began alerting others that things weren't working by 1962. "What we talked about never happened," he claimed. He reached his limit in 1965. He clarified that he had arguments with the powers on character development, scripts, and other matters. "I became quite angry as soon as I got to work. Life is not like that. The Bonanza situation was not the most fulfilling of my life," he told a newspaper when he quit. "I needed to spend some time in a different setting. I focused on regional theater as a result." He was made a star by Bonanza, but he never liked being in the spotlight. "It was startling to suddenly be famous. Being a part of Bonanza was like Isaac Stern sitting in with Lawrence Welk," he once remarked. Roberts had no desire for fame for its own sake. He desired meaning. The formula and shallowness of the show made him feel constrained. He asked, "Isn't it a little ridiculous that 3 adult males have to ask their father's permission for everything they do?" By 1963, he yearned for parts that would allow him to explore deeply. Instead, week after week, he continued to play the same lines. The toll on the mind was mounting. "I was worn down by it," he said. Roberts showed his rage on set. He was always at odds with authors and producers. He contested almost everything from the start. "I fought all the way for the first 3 years of the show," he remarked. "After then, I simply accepted that I would have to serve out my time." The hurried pace annoyed him. At the last minute, scripts arrived. Rehearsal and careful consideration of the scenes were not possible. He stated it was a terrible way to work, and he ensured that everyone was aware of it. He was described as defiant, outspoken, and distant by producer David Dortert. Even so, he acknowledged Roberts' skill. Any situation would be improved by him. By 1964, however, Roberts had given up on the idea that things would get better. He claimed that since the start of the series, "I haven't changed at all. My role is ineffective. The image of the father appears everywhere I look." Roberts also didn't be silent on what was important off-set during this time. He advocated for civil rights using his celebrity. He marched from Selma to Montgomery with Martin Luther King Jr. in 1965. He joined people like Joan Baez and Harry Belafonte, and he vigorously opposed biased casting on the Bonanza set. According to his family, he urged NBC to cast Asian and Native American actors in parts rather than only white actors wearing makeup. He also proposed a plot point in which Adam Cartwright weds a black actress portraying a Native American woman. NBC quickly put an end to the notion, but Roberts persisted. How the network felt about it didn't matter to him. Even at his own expense, he was a firm believer in doing the right thing. He made a different attempt in the midst of his TV career. Roberts recorded the folk song CD Come All You Fair and Tender Ladies in 1963, and RCA Victor released it. It revealed a more sensitive, creative side of him. He performed classic folk tunes including They Call the Wind Maria and In the Pines. He found a form of escapism in music that acting on Bonanza was unable to provide. It allowed him to express his creativity without interference from the network. Even if it wasn't a hit record, he still cared about it. It was genuine, honest, and just the type of employment he was looking for. Roberts also continued to search for methods to go back on stage. His initial love was theater, but it was nearly impossible because of his NBC contract. He was prohibited from working outside during the months of production. He was driven insane by such restriction. He claimed that Bonanza's inability to succeed elsewhere was one of its main issues. He was stuck. He attempted to break free in 1963 by performing on stage with Night of the Iguana, but the network wasn't pleased. Pernell Roberts was mentally worn out by the end of 1964. He was at his breaking point because he was playing Adam Cartwright on Bonanza. He was crushed instead than merely frustrated. A serious actor with training in Shakespeare and a Drama Desk Award, Roberts felt stuck in his creative rut. He claimed that he stopped reading screenplays because the position was so vacant. He would arrive, get the lines from someone, recite them, and then go for home. Now it meant only that to him, he was observed using a stubby pencil to put big black lines through his remarks one day while filming. He insisted that his character read a speech from notes rather than memorize it. Roberts was at the point of silent disobedience. He then claimed to have been in a state of resignation for the last 2 years of his tenure on the show. Roberts felt like a mature man trapped in a child's role since the character never evolved or altered. Then came the Hollywood shocking moment. One of the biggest TV contracts of the decade was extended to him by NBC. Full rerun residuals, $10,500 per episode, and a $693,000 total payout for the 1965-1966 season. Roberts, however, did not even blink. He turned to leave. His co-stars remained, received raises, and became billionaires by 1970. However, Roberts shrugged when questioned about the money he forfeited. He claimed that he didn't require much to survive. Art and honesty were more important to him than money. Roberts joined Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at the Selma to Montgomery March, only weeks after filming his final Bonanza episode. He had no desire to attract notice. He has been involved in civil rights work all his life. He marched in front of lawmakers, demonstrated on picket lines, and pushed NBC to stop using white actors in ethnic parts. Even the network's all-white personnel were a point of contention for him. For Roberts, defending a TV career was less important than standing up for justice. However, things had already worsened behind the scenes. His conflicts with the producers became frank and acrimonious by 1964. He criticized the show's lack of diversity, labeled it juvenile, and asked why 3 grown men required their father's approval for everything. Lorne Greene, his co-star, referred to him as unprofessional. When producer David Dortort accused him of being rebellious, Roberts retaliated by cutting out lines and attempting to bring honesty to a show that he saw was shallow and ridiculous. Years later, Dortort acknowledged his mistake. He said that he was unaware of Roberts' exceptional talent, but it was too late. Persuaded that television had turned into a tool for conformity and avarice, Roberts had already departed. He didn't want to be involved since he believed it was stifling innovation. Roberts made a comeback to Broadway in 1972, co-starring with Ingrid Bergman in Captain Brassbound's Conversion. It was a moment of pride. His performance was appreciated by a critic, and anticipated that Bonanza's shadow would finally be lifted from his career. Although it didn't, it demonstrated that his theatrical presence had never diminished. He performed as Rhett Butler in a theater adaptation of Gone with the Wind the following year. The program was a failure. Although the production was criticized rather than Roberts, the harm had already been done. In a series of post-Bonanza disappointments, it was just another miss. Although he did a terrific job, the projects around him continued to fail. Hollywood utilized that to claim that his departure was a grave error. However, not everyone was in agreement. Roberts' performance in Welcome Home in Chicago earned him a nomination for a Joseph Jefferson Award in 1973. During a difficult period, it was a unique moment of acknowledgement. He continued to appear as a guest on TV shows like Mannix, Gunsmoke and The Odd Couple. However, the industry had largely ignored him. He had turned into a silent cautionary tale to others. Avoid upsetting people the way Pernell did. He was unable to get another series for years. He later acknowledged that he was silently blacklisted after publicly criticizing TV, and that he never even had the opportunity to say no. He served as a warning to producers. They would advise following our instructions or becoming like Roberts. Instead of being resentful, he chose to heal. He returned to the theater in the region, far from Hollywood, and portrayed a variety of characters, including Randall McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music. Although these were financially difficult years, Roberts deemed them essential. He claimed that he needed to emotionally re-establish himself, but he never expressed regret for leaving Bonanza. Pernell Roberts left one of the most popular television programs ever. He quit Bonanza in 1965 and forfeited a sizable salary, $60,000 every episode, or more than $500,000 in today's currency. He remained largely out of the public eye for the following 14 years. Few anticipated that he would return to television after working in theater. By happenstance, that changed. At a charity function in October 1978, he made a joke about becoming the most well-known quitter on television. Frank Glicksman, one of the producers, was present. An audition resulted from that joke, and it was shocking. The executives, exactly 20 years after his initial Bonanza appearance, on September 23, 1979, Trapper John M.D. first appeared. On the first night, more than 28 million people watched it. Pernell has made a spectacular comeback. He ensured that its return would be unique. He was given more schedule flexibility and script approval, which he did not have on Bonanza. He wasn't merely portraying a doctor. From within, he was molding the show. He was nominated for an Emmy in 1981, but he nearly declined. The thought of artists competing bothered him. He only consented to go after finding out that medical schools were using the submitted episode, in which his character treats a political prisoner. Nearly half of the TV viewers that evening watched that episode. Roberts chose to donate his $25,000 promotional money to the Southern Poverty Law Center, rather than launch a lavish Emmy campaign. Use this to fight actual conflicts rather than made-up ones, he wrote in the note. John Maryland was a trapper for 7 complete seasons. It lasted longer than his Bonanza tenure. The 151-episode series concluded on his terms in 1986. Trapper John persevered despite fierce competition, even though Bonanza had a larger audience at the time. One of the few shows with viewers of all ages and backgrounds was this one. Its advertising revenue was $127.8 million. Roberts' share of the revenues alone brought in almost $4.5 million. However, money wasn't the only factor. He insisted that the character be more than a cliché. He requested that the authors delve into Trapper's past, particularly his experiences during the Vietnam War, and demonstrate how he changed from a careless surgeon to a considerate leader. At the time, medical dramas rarely had that level of detail. Roberts altered the rules behind the scenes. He chose his own squad, which was unprecedented at the time. Hiring David Friedkin, a writer who had been banned during the Red Scare, was one of his most audacious decisions. Roberts refused to back down. Even though it nearly cost the show a big sponsor, he called for greater diversity as well. Approximately 40% of the show's directors were minorities or women. That was 5 times the norm for the industry. He threatened to resign in 1981 unless a black recurrent character was cast. Madge Sinclair was cast as Nurse Shoop in this way. He was respectful of the crew. He hosted weekly gatherings, where anyone might offer suggestions for enhancements. This reduced turnover, maintained a positive attitude, and saved time. He even came up with a system of profit sharing. The team received 2% of the syndication income. In 1984, he was asked to speak about it by the Television Academy. He continued to remain an activist despite his TV comeback. He donated 25% of his earnings to a non-profit that supported artistic freedom of expression. He converted his modest trailer into an Equal Rights Amendment campaign headquarters. It was disliked by studio executives. He was indifferent. He used his script control to produce the most daring episode to date after 7 TV stations refused to carry his shows due to his political beliefs. Trapper tends to injured citizens in Nicaragua. He also started a training program for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. 14 of them visited the set each year to gain paid production experience. A few of them later joined the Directors Guild. He was calm but complicated in his private life. He had 4 marriages. Jonathan, his only kid, was born to his first wife, a theater professor who was 15 years his senior. He eventually married Professor Eleanor Criswell, with whom he had a close intellectual relationship, on a Bonanza lunch break, and again for more than 20 years. After getting married in 1997, they remained together till his passing. 1989 was the most difficult year of his life. At the age of 38, his son Jonathan lost his life in a motorcycle accident. For years, Roberts never discussed it in public. Eventually, he said that the grief was too intense to express. He was altered by that. Following that, he made more deliberate casting decisions and increasingly separated himself from the Hollywood limelight. Far from the clamor of celebrity, he resided in Malibu. His house included literature, Native American artwork, and views of the ocean instead of prizes. It turned into his haven of peace. He remained there after receiving a pancreatic cancer diagnosis at the age of 79. No media coverage, no pity, only solitude, dignity, and Eleanor's devotion, who cared for him till the very end. At the age of 81, he passed away on January 24, 2010. Despite leaving the program first, he outlived the other cast members and was the last surviving member of the original Bonanza cast. He outlasted everything, in a sense, the fame of Hollywood trends, and even the parts that were expected of him.